Welcome to our French cluster webinar business case. This morning, we're going to talk about recruiting sales talent in the US. A few words about French cluster. This is a pool of French-speaking experts, all based in the US. These experts have extensive knowledge of the American market, and they want to offer their expertise to help their community succeed and grow in the US. All the members are chosen from different professions. They are selected based on their unique set of skills and expertise. And each of them represents something unique to help other professionals. At French Cluster, there's an expression in French I really like to summarize what we do. It's a réseau bienveillant for those of you who speak French. We share common goals, we share self-progress, we want to help others. And values that are very important to us are brotherhood and integrity. French Cluster was created in LA by a group of people. And recently a new chapter was launched and created in Chicago. And I'm one of the Chicago members. A few words about myself, maybe. So Myriam Cannellier. I've been living in the US for the last 20 years. Chicago now has been home for the last 15 years. And I co-founded the DSML Executive Search about 14 years ago. We specialize in helping European and Canadian companies find the talent they need in the US for their North American subsidiaries. We work across the US, and we work in a variety of industries, including tech. Before we start, and I introduced our guest today, Yannick, I wanted to share with you a few housekeeping items. If you look at the chat, you will see the way to contact us after this webinar. Our info will be posted there. This webinar is being recorded, so it will be posted on the French Cluster's YouTube channel if you want to watch it or share it with others. And if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A, and we'll address them at the end of the conversation. So I'm turning to our guest, Yannick Deliby. I had the pleasure to work with Yannick when he arrived to Chicago in 2017 to develop the business of his company. And our conversation today will be about his experience recruiting sales talent and developing the business of Curlink in the US. So maybe Yannick, you can introduce yourself.
Yes. So good morning, everybody. So I'm Yannick Deliby. I'm the CEO of Curlink Inc. Curlink Inc. is Curlink globally is a French company based in the west of France, in Rennes. I'm the co-founder of this company, so I'm acting as a CTO of the company in France and president and CEO of the US subsidiary. So I'm here in the US since 2017, so 4 years now. My company is a tech company, and we developed infrastructure for the IoT Internet of Things network with some specific use cases like smart city application for smart metering, water, gas smart metering, or street light monitoring and management. And we developed this business in the US for a private company, and especially here for the smart building application.
Well, thank you, Yannick. That's a good way to summarize your business. The first person, so I'll start with the questions. The first person you recruited in the US was a sales director. Can you tell us why?
Yes, of course. So as I already said, my company is a tech company. We focus our investment in innovation and development. So we focus only on the technical aspect for the complete positioning of our portfolio. And personally, I'm an engineer, so acting as a CTO for the group. So clearly, sell a product, it's not my main skill. So for that, I really need to have someone that can help me to sell my solution and my products here in the US. In the US, we are facing to a lot of challenges. For us, it's a completely new market. It was a completely new market. So 4 years ago, it was a completely new market. So for the IoT, the Internet of Things, it's a new region with a new culture, and we need to have a first customer leads, a first network to be able to sell our product. So we have a strategy, we have a product and sell solution, and we have a bunch of potential customers. But to link the both, we need to have a real operational sales team, and have this is really crucial. So I have decided my first action in the US was to hire an American sales director to help me to sell my solution here in this market.
So you talk about the challenges of adapting and selling in the US. It's really different. And I remember conversations we had when you were discovering the US, and you were telling me, you were seeing these differences. Can you elaborate a little bit on the challenges in the way you sell in the US compared to France, for example?
Yes, so concretely, and it's my personal vision of the business here in the US. I think it's clearly it's clearly specific. The rules are completely different than in the European market. We do not sell a product here. We do not sell a solution. We do not sell a technique or a technology. We need to cover a requirement for the customer. We need to convince him that we are a partner that can solve his problem, and not to sell something that he don't have the needs. So we really need to have this kind of mindset before starting commercial action. We don't have two chances with the customer. We need to convince him at the first meeting. It's really important to have a good opinion at the first meeting, and it's not a technical discussion. We really need to convince him. The other point that we can highlight here is that there is a lot of informal discussion with the customer. We always start a technical meeting with some discussion about the football or basketball games last week, the place you live, or something like that. We have really a social discussion before starting, before going on the business aspect. So for that, clearly, to be an American or at least grew up here, it's really easier to do that. So those codes are really specific, and I guess it's my opinion. And after four years, I think it's the good one. We need to have an American, a native American, to manage the sales meeting.
And I remember, Yannick, you shared an example of really I don't want to say a bad experience, but yes, a little bit, where you met with a prospect. I think it was a startup in California, you said, and it didn't go the way you wanted. It's a good example of what not to do when you are trying to sell in the US.
Yes, so at the beginning of my journey here in the US, I had a customer that it was completely convinced that the technology is the right one for its needs. But I started the meeting by a technology presentation, the capacity of our product and our solution, and the customer wanted only a price or a specific business model for that, and I lose it. I miss this business because I didn't see the needs of this customer. It was really critical for me.
Mm. And I remember you told me that now you're more familiar with the culture, so you realize there are non-verbal cues sometimes that people will provide, but if you're not native or you've not been here a long time, you don't necessarily see those cues that would help you realize that you're not on track. Yeah. My next question would be, so coming back about the selection and the hiring of that particular salesperson, the sales director, what main differences have you experienced when you recruited compared to France?
Yeah, so I had the chance to meet you, Myriam, at the beginning because the code, when you have an interview with a candidate, the code are really specific, are really important here in the US for all the privacy question that you can have that you don't have to ask for the contract. And at the end, the screening of the candidate, it's really important here, and it was new for me.
Mm. And so maybe a few to go with what you just said. You obviously you can't ask certain questions in the US when you interview, and often people from Europe can make that mistake if they've not been advised properly. So it's a good point. You can't, by the way, and that's pretty recent, you can't ask someone how much they are making. You can't ask people about their salary in most now states or big cities because they have new regulations about that. I know that sometimes Europeans, they don't know about this. And the contract is another big one. We could discuss that briefly, but it's true that especially when you recruit your first sales lead, head, VP, director, are you going to have a contract or just a regular offer letter? So it would be a topic in itself, but really maybe the message here is to work with a lawyer and to look at the pros and cons, because I think we discussed it the other day. When you go with a simple employment with the at-will relationship that is the characteristic of the US, you have to remember it works both ways. So the person can leave you the next day or in 2 weeks when the relationship is just at will and you don't have more complex contract on the side. So it's something that as an entrepreneur you have to decide, you have to look at the pros and cons, what's best for your business, right? When you recruited your sales director, so it was pre-COVID, but so maybe now it's even more a relevant question. You recruited someone who was located very far from you, was not located in Chicago. Why did you do that?
Yeah, for me the priority when I was looking for this sales director was the right personality. So the right guy to help me to do business here. As we can see now with the last year, we can see that we are able to do business online, to do business remotely. We are able to manage people remotely. also, but the skills of the person is really critical, and it's why I focus on the profile and not on the region.
Mm-hmm. And so there's something particular with that individual is that he had experience working with Europeans before, and he also, so he's American, but he had some Latin American roots. So
yeah,
would you say that all that also was very, very helpful for you?
yeah. So I had a chance that the profile that you selected, Myriam, was had a very good fit with my requirements, because this guy, so it's a US citizen, of course, but from the south of America, with a good knowledge of the European culture, and he already worked with a French startup, so he had a very good knowledge of the French culture and the way that we work in France, especially in the startup and on small company. So it was very, very helpful.
Do you have, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any anecdote or any situation that you can remember in the last 3-4 years where you say, oh, I'm really it's good to have someone who understands a bit about the European or French culture, because we know it's challenging when you have someone here in the US working for a French company.
Yeah, so it's not really with the US market, but is really we have every year a meeting. So not last year, but we're in Barcelona, called the Mobile World Congress. It's a big meeting for the telecommunication, and is really he has as he has the both culture, so European, so Spanish and US. He was a very good link with the US company that will be there. So it's really interesting for that.
Wow. Okay. And so you recruited a head of sales first.
Yeah.
If you could do it again, is there anything you would do differently?
So I had three issues at the beginning. So three scope of work for my company in the US. It was so the sales first, the marketing, because the local marketing is really important here in the US, and the customer support. So I decided to put the priority on the sales guys to help me, and for the marketing, I already have a strong team in Europe that can manage local marketing action. And for the third issue, so the customer support, I decided to use a French engineer from my R&D team as an expatriate here in the US, to maintain the link between the headquarters, the R&D team, and the US customers.
And that's something. By the way, what you described is something that we have seen often ourselves with clients. Where you have that triple challenge. You need sales, marketing, and customer support or customer service. And what we're seeing working quite well is exactly what you did, which is to send someone from Europe for the customer support, especially at the beginning, because it's so difficult to find technical talent at a reasonable price in the US for a small company. And the sales, so you said you recruit locally, and then the marketing. So the marketing maybe is the one piece where sometimes company should go faster. Is it something you would agree with? That maybe
Yes,
you
of
can't
course.
wait too long for marketing, right?
So marketing is really key in the US. We need to have a real strong action to sell product and to manage the sell action. So the marketing is really key. But it was my choice at the beginning. We preferred to invest in the sales and to manage the marketing remotely. But clearly, we need to have a specific budget for the marketing year after year, because and it's really increasing year after year with the local marketing action here in the US. So we can manage it remotely, but we need to have a budget for that.
Another thing about this specific sales leader that you recruit, you chose to first hire someone with a lot of experience, who was, quite senior in experience. You didn't go with what other companies do sometimes, which is to hire someone very junior. Can you tell us why?
Yes, business is key. So to be sure that we will be on the time to market, so to be able to sell the right product at the right time, we already had the product available. The market was mature. So for that, we need to have a specific customer leads, and the only way to do that is to have a sales director with a lot of experience in the market. So there is no other possibility for me.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't mention that earlier, but we both French trade advisors, so we think that the VIE program, that's a lot of, maybe some of our listeners know about, that's a great program from France to send young, French professionals abroad. Some companies sometimes use VIE as their, salesperson in the US, and I think we both agree you don't think it's the greatest way to approach sales, right?
It's not efficient. It's not enough efficient. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So is there any other tip that you would want to share with our listener or other entrepreneurs about your experience with developing sales in the US?
Yeah, so it's a basic information, but in the US there is some topic that it's difficult to understand when we are French, or we hire sales director in France, something like the salary, so the payroll is really more expensive here, or expensive is higher than in Europe, for sure. The marketing cost is very important, and we need to have a very strong legal support to do business here. It's my main experience for to set up a business here in the US.
Talking about salary, I think it's maybe we can spend a few minutes on that, because it's really often such a recurring topic. Everyone who is new is always surprised, shocked, and we could talk hours, why salaries are higher, but that's what they are. So is there for example, did you notice that also you could actually sell your services and your products at a higher cost, at a higher price here, and maybe your margins will be higher, and you can in some way finance your sales team or your marketing effort? Is it something that you could talk about?
Yeah, so there is a certain level of market for the employment for sales director here. So we need to be agile on that, and and to accept to pay those kind of profile at the market price for sure. But as an entrepreneur, my only thought I have today is to think about the return of investment. If I pay my sales director, I don't know, 200K or 300K, I can expect to have real revenue on that and to be able to have a return of investment on this salary very quickly.
Yeah, and that's maybe the main message for people to keep in mind, and not necessarily compare just the value of the salary to what people would pay in France.
You know, the US market is so huge and it's really scalable. If you are able to do business in one state, you can do that 50 times with the other states. It's really a scalable market. So the return of investment is really easy to anticipate.
So I think, we're getting to close to the end of our chat, but we want to have time for question maybe from our listener. So I'm turning to the Q&A little box, see if someone has any question. Don't hesitate, don't be shy. And it could be about the recruiting itself, or sales, or Yannick's experience in tech. So yeah, I see your first question here. With the current situation, is it easier for a French company that is starting in the US to find sales talent? So I guess by current situation, you mean the economic crisis, the higher unemployment, all this very complicated situation we're living in. The answer would be yes and no, but probably more no than yes. And it's not necessarily intuitive, but the market is still a little bit of a candidate's market for the right talent, the people with the right skills. Unfortunately, the high unemployment rate right now is a lot about certain industries that are very hard hit, certain entry-level position in hospitality, in restaurants, in certain services. But when it comes to finding technical sales talent at any level, I would tell you, but because we just completed a search recently that was a little more mid-level, and it was not that easy, because people are good salespeople generally are employed. So it is still going to be a challenge for a company to find the right people. And in a situation like we are in right now, actually the difficulty might be that if they post, for example, you post an ad on Indeed, or you may actually have a lot of people applying, doesn't mean that they are what the company needs or that the company is looking for. You still have a lot of people. There's a lot of movement in the market, but not necessarily the right people. So that would be my answer. I hope I addressed the question. I don't know. So another question. So for a small company at the very beginning, would it be easier to start with an independent contractor instead of hiring someone? So this one is also a little bit of a tricky question. It really depends on the industry, and also at what stage the company is in the US. Do they have a little bit of business that they acquired from Europe, or do they have nothing? In some industries, it's an option to start with one or a few independent contractors. it's lighter in terms of the commitment, because then you can have a scheme where you pay them really based on what they bring. However, this is really something that I would recommend you, as an entrepreneur, you work with a lawyer, because you need to make sure that the contract you put in place with those people, or even if it's just one person, they have to be really well designed, well crafted, because you have to protect your IP, you have to protect certain information, you have to think in terms of territories, you have to think in terms of the length of the agreement, all things that if you don't do it properly, you could be in trouble. You could end up with people who, you know, steal something from you, or you know, don't do good to your company. So you have to be careful. And I think Yannick was mentioning the legal. It's essential in the US to work with a good lawyer for things like that. Looking at the Q&A, I don't know if we have more questions. Yeah, so I think, you know, I'm going to thank you, Yannick, for taking the time. I know you had a very busy day today with an important meeting with friends, so thank you for taking the time. We'll conclude this webinar, and again, this content will be available on the French Cluster YouTube channel for you to watch again. It was a pleasure, and have a nice end of your day. Thank you very much.